How your approach as a lawyer towards litigation of human rights cases is different from the other cases, and I mean you and so many other advocates in the Supreme Court have taken up these issues, and what kind of approach is there towards the litigant and how you feel that person comfortable, whether you go some extra miles to support that person, what all you do in that?
See, human rights litigation, I mean, you're right that it is somehow different from mainstream litigation because, somehow in human rights litigation, you'll have to go extra mile. You have to be little empathetic to the person whom you're dealing with. You have to listen to them carefully. And if required, you have to go and see where they live, in what conditions do they live. These practices are not required in any other litigation. Maybe if you're a tax lawyer, you're not required to go and visit people, communities and their house and their villages or maybe their other households. You don't have to go there and understand. But as a human rights litigator, it is important that you are very much well connected with the society. You are always aware about their situation, and that is how, because that will bring change in your
But
practice.
then litigation is a costly affair for the litigant in India, particularly in High Court and Supreme Court. So how that aspect is handled by you as a lawyer?
See, I'm glad that our Supreme Court has opened up gate to public interest litigation. In 90s, 80s, we have seen that there was a new era of Indian judiciary where gates of Supreme Court were opened, that even merely by a postcard, a case can be lodged in the Supreme Court.
But so, I have seen over the years, though PIL is really something good, but then the kind of approach which earlier used to be there of the Supreme Court with regard to PIL, the same kind of approach is no more seen.
I mean, you are partially right that definitely PIL started as a tool to uplift poor and to address the concern of marginalized. But now PILs are also filed by middle class people and maybe sometimes frivolous litigations. No doubt about it.
Because Supreme Court has once said that it's a public, instead of public interest litigation, it's a private interest litigation.
But at the same time, we must be conscious that Supreme Court has been passing wonderful judgments, very powerful judgments, which has brought change to our society, our life of millions of people. We have our historic right to food case, where Supreme Court through its judicial orders ensure that nobody goes hungry, nobody dies out of malnutrition. Unfortunately, the reality is that people have died, but Supreme Court has passed an order ensuring that right to food is ensured in every household.
We would also like to talk about the problems pertaining to refugees, and this is a problem which is in a way international problem. Any conflict zone in the world, people are fleeing from one country to another to take shelter, to get the protection, to be safe in another country. And in India also this has been happening a lot, right from 1971, I mean when this people came from Bangladesh, till recently the Rohingya refugees came in large numbers to India. So as a lawyer, what kind of work you are doing in this particular area, providing some kind of legal support to the refugees?
See, refugees is a very interesting case, and it's not only a problem in India, but it is actually, this debate is very pertinent and relevant when we see the global discourse right now. But coming back to Indian context, it is very important because India is not signatory to 1951 Refugee Convention. And a lot of people argue that since India is not a signatory, even Government of India has passed an order for deportation of refugees.
This was pointed out in this Rohingya case. Yeah.
So, but this stand is totally incorrect. Government of India's stand to deport Rohingya refugees is illegal. And I'll explain why. In India, there is Article 21 which guarantees right to life, and it is not limited to only citizens, but every person has a right to life, including refugees. And if you'll see India's judicial history, time and again, India's Supreme Court in 1996 in Chakma's case, NHRC versus Khudiram Chakma, they have ensured and they went ahead to ensure citizenship for them. Supreme Court passed an order. Later on in multiple high courts, we have seen how high courts have recognized there is something called principle of non-refoulement, non-return, which is Article 33 of 1951 Convention, which prohibits return to a country if there is a perceived threat